You may have heard of the Audi e-tron GT and the e-tron SUV, and you may think, well, I really like them, but I don't have a spare £70,000 and more to afford them. Well, this may be the car you're after. This is the Audi Q4 e-tron, and it is a new, more affordable, pure electric Audi. Before we go any further into whether this really is the electric Audi for you, don't forget to subscribe to the CarGurus UK channel and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any of our videos. As you can see, it's a mid-sized family SUV. I mean, Audi's naming strategy can be really confusing, but here the Q4 bit does tell you that it is a bit bigger than a Q3 and a bit smaller than a Q5, and the e-tron bit tells you that it is pure electric. On which note, you can get two different batteries in this car, a 52 kilowatt hour or a 77 kilowatt hour, and that gives you a range of between 208 and 316 miles. And that does make this one of the longest range cars in this class. Having said that, this car sits on the MEB platform, the same platform as the Volkswagen ID.4 and the ID.3 and the Skoda Enyaq. And we've never been that blown away by the real world efficiency on those cars, so we will have to see how this does in the real world in a bit. It certainly looks good, with a stubby nose and swept back lines, not to mention the contrasting trim running off the window line. It's practical too. The boot lip is a bit high, but it's a decent size and has underfloor storage that's great for stowing your cables. There's also plenty of space in the rear seats, even for a 6-footer to sit behind a tall driver. It's pretty impressive up front as well. There's plenty of room for pretty much anybody to get comfortable, I'd argue. The manual adjustment on the seat can be a bit tricky to get in exactly the right position. It feels like you're kind of difficult to just move it incrementally, but still, really nice place to sit. And let's talk about this. It is a kind of square steering wheel. Now look, it's optional on the lower two trims, but it is standard on Edition 1 and also the incredibly expensive Vorsprung model. Do you know what? I don't mind it actually in use. We'll talk about it a bit more maybe later when we're driving. What annoys me far more than the flat bottom and top is the touch sensitive steering wheel buttons. There are lots of things that annoy me about the interfaces in modern cars, screens that you can't dim easily, all of that stuff. Nothing is more annoying than touch sensitive buttons on the steering wheel. It should be banned. It's a terrible, terrible idea. Anyway, I will move on. Even the entry-level sport trim gets 3-zone climate control, which you adjust with traditional buttons, I'm pleased to say, heated seats and rear parking sensors, although it's annoying that it costs a lot extra to get a reversing camera unless you go for the ridiculously expensive Vorsprung model. You get this colour touchscreen here, you get the Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, all the bits and pieces that you want. And you know what? It's not bad to use, actually, this system. The screen responds really nicely, the graphics are great, it is one of the best systems in the class. You also get the Audi Virtual Cockpit as standard, and it is just, I think, quite a smart looking interior. It's very angular, and to an extent the square steering wheel kind of enhances that. So yeah, I don't think there's much to complain about up here. Before we get to the driving bit, let's talk charging. The smaller battery model, called the 35, charges at speeds of up to 100 kilowatts, which is good for a 100-mile top-up in around about 20 minutes. But the big battery versions, badged 40 and 50, charge at 125 kilowatts, so you'll get the same top-up in around about 15 minutes. A full charge at a 7 kilowatt home wall box will take 12 hours in the big battery car, or under 9 hours in the smaller battery model. The test car that we've got here is the Q4 e-tron 40, which is the mid-range car. So you're getting 201 brake horsepower, it's rear-wheel drive. You can get this car with 4-wheel drive if you go for the 50 model, and that gets masses more power as well. So that thing will do 0 to 62 in about 6.2 seconds, whereas this one does 8.1 seconds. I think that this is the sweet spot in the range, to be honest, because you're getting the longer range battery, you're getting decent performance. It doesn't give you a proper kind of, a bit of shock and awe like some electric cars do, the Ford Mustang Mach-E, for instance. But it's got more than enough power to feel pretty punchy, especially up to about 40 or 50. Can feel a little bit breathless after that at times, I suppose, for a fairly powerful premium SUV. But this thing's heavy, it's a 2-ton car, so even with 201 brake, never feels like a sports SUV, that's for sure. Just feels nice, feels responsive, nice and smooth, nice and slick, and that goes for the ride comfort as well as for the performance. It's got really nice sort of cushy bump absorption, and everything just feels well judged. It's not a thrilling car to drive, I'm not going to lie, even if you stick it in dynamic mode. And it really annoys me that you have to press this button right over here by your passenger's knee to toggle through the drive modes. That seems kind of illogical to me. But anyway, when you do get it in dynamic mode. Everything sharpens up, you get more throttle response, but ultimately this feels like a really relaxing, chilled family car. And I think that's absolutely fine. I think that's what most people want from it. It's very refined, really nice motorway car, feels really stable. And this steering, as with everything else, it just feels very precise, nicely weighted. There's not a hell of a lot of feedback, but because there's plenty of grip, don't worry about that rear-wheel drive aspect. There's masses of traction in this car. I have driven it in the rain and it feels absolutely sort of planted and confident even then. You can really kind of swing it through corners. It feels quite nice. It's all good. The only thing that might take a little bit of getting used to is the brake regen, because Audi chooses to have an automatic mode on its brake regen, which most rivals, including the EQA and all that kind of stuff, they do too. Audi decides that if the road ahead is clear, then it will let the car coast. And that can feel a bit weird. It can feel a little bit like the car's kind of running away from you, because if you're used to a petrol or diesel car and you're used to that kind of engine braking, you don't get it in this. You lift off and the car will literally just freewheel for what feels like miles. And actually, when you get used to it, that's quite nice. And it is a very efficient way of getting about. But then if it senses that there's a junction ahead or another car or even a change in speed limit, then it will actually start to slow the car down. You can choose standard levels of brake regen. You can toggle through it with these steering wheel paddles, which is another thing I like, because it basically means that you can have full control of the brake regeneration and you can use it almost like you would changing down a gear in an automatic car. So ultimately, I think this is a really well set up brake regen system that just fits in very well with everything else. And what about real world range? Well, our Q4 40 e-tron isn't doing too badly. We've seen around about 250 to 260 miles in the summer, and we'd expect to see more like about 200 to 220 miles in winter conditions. And the square steering wheel, well, do you know what? Actually, it doesn't bother me too much. And I don't think it will bother most people, but it is a triumph of marketing over common sense, let's face it. And let's not even go near the touch-sensitive steering wheel buttons, which are just a disaster. If we can forgive that, then the rest of the Audi e-tron, in terms of the way it drives, is a really sweet package, actually. It's just a very easy thing to like and a very easy thing to get on with the second you get into it. It's priced very competitively. Even the long-range car costs from under £45,000. Finance deals are a bit pricey, to be honest, but for what it is, for the sort of image you're getting, for the interior quality, there's lots of reasons why you might go for this, even though there are other cars out there that undeniably offer better practicality, better performance for less cash. Even so, it's a lovely thing. And if you can find the right deal for you, then go for it. There's not much wrong with the Q4 e-tron then. You can get it from under £45,000 even with that long-range battery, so it's very competitive on pricing with its premium rivals, and it's just as swish to sit in and drive as you'd expect. However, it is outclassed by the Mercedes EQA on interior finish, and for performance and space by the Mustang Mach-E. And perhaps the biggest issue is that the Volkswagen ID.4 and Skoda Enyaq iV are very similar to drive, and yet actually are a bit more practical for a lot less cash. Hey, you have to pay for the prestige badge, of course, and if you can find a deal to suit you, then you're not going to be disappointed. But there are certainly others out there that seem to offer a bit more for the money than the Audi Q4 e-tron. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the CarGurus UK YouTube channel, and head to cargurus.co.uk for a whole host of fantastic used cars from top-rated dealers.